Controversy, controversy, controversy. We changed the actress, we made her black, now you're mad at me, you're mad at me. We could have made a black princess, we chose to change a girl instead. Now you're all fighting, this is exciting, controversy. Wow, thank you. Thank you very much,
that was
guys.
Incredible.
What's even more incredible is that I wrote that 2 minutes before we went live. I was like, there's no way I'm going to talk about The Little Mermaid and not redo one of the songs for this story.
Just unlimited talents, ladies and gentlemen. What can't she do?
She's a triple threat, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a fun show lined up for you and some pretty superficial topics. We're not going to get too deep here. We are going to talk The Little Mermaid, who has now been casted as a black actress, and that movie is coming out very soon. And of course, there's a lot of controversy about that. We're also going to be talking about racial tension that has been stirring up at the Emmys, which nobody watched, but we'll get to that. And we're going to do a fun little thing at the end of today's show. So before we get into everything, I don't have our intro video, so we won't even worry about that. Let's talk about the Little Mermaid controversy. For those of you who don't know, the Little Mermaid is casted as this young woman right here, Halle Bailey, not Halle Berry, although she's just as gorgeous as Halle Berry. And she's now playing Ariel, and the teaser trailer for this movie came out. We've known that Halle Bailey, by the way, has been cast as Ariel for quite some time, but I think because this teaser trailer came out and people are now seeing the black Princess Ariel in the flesh, people are getting upset. Others are getting upset at the fact that other people are upset about it. And of course, all of the conversations are surrounding the race of Little Miss Princess Ariel. Now, I did ask on the community post today, how do you guys feel about the Little Mermaid being black? 6% of you said, I think it's great. 37% of you said, I think they shouldn't have done that. And 57% of you said, I don't care, which I think is the popular response to the controversy that's happening surrounding this and in this particular movie. Let's get into some of the takes we have on this. Like I said, the teaser trailer came out. They've shown her, and the world is going crazy. On TikTok, I'm seeing lots of videos of little black kids being sat in front of laptops and filming their reactions to seeing Princess Ariel. Some of them being like, oh my gosh, she's black. How great is that? And of course, the others who are saying, you know, Princess Ariel was and always has been a white character. Why have we now decided to cast a black actress? And we'll talk about all the different controversial opinions you can have surrounding the subject matter. And then I'll give mine, of course, because we can't just talk about others and not give our own. First, let's see a take. This is in response to people saying you should not have casted a black actress as Ariel.
You know what? You're right. I mean, just imagine. Imagine if they cast Angelina Jolie as Afro-Latina woman Marion Pearl. Or if they cast white actor Jack Palance as Cuban Fidel Castro. Or if they got the white actor Ben Affleck to play the Mexican-American man Antonio J. Mendez. Or if they got the white actress Elizabeth Taylor to play the Egyptian Cleopatra. Or a white actor like Jim Sturgis playing Asian-American Jeffrey Ma. Or if they got white actor Sean...
Okay, I think we get the point. Right, we get the point here. What I will say is there is a flaw in this woman's argument in that the people who are playing the characters are dressing up as the race that they're playing. So if you hire, you know, Angelina Jolie to play a Hispanic woman, and Angelina Jolie dresses and looks like a Hispanic person, you are in fact taking on the race of that character. So there's a little bit of a difference there. The same can be said for things like West Side Story, where famously in the 1960s, white people played the Hispanic sharks in that movie. So it's different because the purpose of acting is to take on something that you are not. So if Angelina Jolie plays a Hispanic woman, we know Angelina Jolie is not Hispanic. We're not trying to steal the role from a Hispanic person, but the whole purpose of acting is to play something that you are not. The same can be said for, say, a Leonardo DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He's playing somebody who has a mental challenge. Is that something that should be off the board for acting? Should we not allow actors to actually assume positions that they don't hold in society? So that's the question there. And with Ariel, had this been a black girl playing, you know, a white person, I don't know. Would there be controversy surrounding that? What would the reaction be to something like that happening? Like if she put on whiteface and is like, I'm just a black person, but I'm playing a white character. I wonder what the reaction would be from the general public.
Yeah, I don't think people would really care. I think if anything, woke people would be like, you don't have to paint your skin. That's, you're selling out your race, or on some level. I don't think any like white people would be like, oh, you're appropriating white people or something like that. But it's so silly that we even have to have these conversations, isn't it?
I know. It feels like, oh my gosh, why am I talking about a Disney movie where this girl is playing a mermaid? But it does speak to sort of larger cultural run-ins that we're having in today's day and age. I want to address another argument here. Everybody's like, Ariel's a mermaid, whatever. It doesn't even matter. It's not even a real thing. It's a fictional character. Totally get that too. I do believe in looking into this, though, that the person who created the Little Mermaid, it's supposed to be part of like Danish lore.
Yeah, it's a fairy tale by a Danish author named Hans Christian Andersen, and he has wrote a number of fairy tales. But yeah, he's a famed Danish author, and no mention of that is conveniently left out of the conversation right now.
Right. And people are very much leaning on the fact that she is a mermaid. Linda Carter here tweeted out, people are mad the Little Mermaid is black. The lady who is also a fish who lives under the sea, whose best friend is a talking crab. And I think, obviously there is something to that argument. And it does point out just where we are as a culture arguing over Disney movies is a really interesting thing. But when we step outside of that and talk about the racialized conversations we're having now, many of which that are affecting white people negatively, there's something to be said for the ability of now black people to play white characters and not the opposite happen in return. And I saw this take on TikTok that I think is a fresh one, an interesting one, and I'm sure received quite a bit of backlash. Here's what this woman had to say.
I find it funny y'all are complaining about her hair color, but we all know it isn't. About the hair, but it's because she's a black woman. Ariel.
I find it funny how hypocritical y'all are. It literally is embarrassing how hypocritical y'all are. Most of the people who are literally saying that Ariel has no meaning and she's just a character are the people who never even grew up watching The Little Mermaid as their childhood movie. You do realize that Ariel has been around for a long time, and people who watched Ariel grew up watching her representation stuck in the minds of them, and that's the reason why they have a problem with this. The image of the original Little Mermaid grown deep in the hearts of a lot of people, and that's why people have a problem with it, because this Ariel does not look like that. But I find it hypocritical, because let Disney come out with a live action version of The Princess and the Frog and they replace her with a white woman. Y'all would literally be furious. Y'all would literally be acting the same way as these people are acting. And don't even lie, because y'all know damn well y'all would try to cancel Disney if they made Tiana a white woman. And I would be upset too if they made Tiana a white woman. Even if they made Tiana a lighter skinned woman or a mixed woman, y'all would still try to cancel Disney. I really feel like y'all don't even care about the situation. Y'all just see a black woman getting analyzed or getting critiqued, and y'all literally are saying that it's racist. No, it doesn't. It has nothing to do with racism. Literally, they're just upset because she looks nothing like the original character that has been around for over 30 years. Stop the fucking reach.
I love it. Just lay it down like you see it. And there is something to be said about that. If Princess Tiana, they suddenly remade Princess and the Frog and made a live action film of that, and that lady was white. Are you kidding me? Do you know the reaction that would be seen from people who are part of just like this woke ideological bubble? It'd be insanity. It truly would be.
Yeah, and that's the annoying thing, is the double standard, and that they criticize their pushback against which I think is a lot of like imaginary racism. A lot of the times they're like, oh, there's these trolls on Twitter who are saying these things. It's like, who? Show me the tweets of the actual racists who actually have a problem with a black person being cast on this,
right,
but in a racist way. And it's not, you're reading that into it when they have a more innocuous take that's about your changing the lore, changing the history or something like that. But really, they say, why do you care so much about this fantasy? But it's like, I wish we didn't care so much. I wish we were in a place where you didn't care so much, where you felt the need to jam diversity hires into everything, but it's just that's where our culture is right now. And I look forward to the day where we're just over it and we're back to like race neutrality, as we talk about a lot on the show. And where, because in a vacuum, no, I don't care if you cast a black actress in this film or whatever. Like it's fine. It's not something that I have a strong opinion about, but it's just I think this is in the context of our culture where there's this constant barrage of we need representation here, and like I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, and they're jamming that and then jamming feminist narratives into it all, and it's like, is this really about bringing a cherished story and cherished fairy tale or cherished lore to life in the best way we can, and really leaning into what the author created and bringing that to life in a creative, awesome way that does justice to the source material? Or are we trying to use the source material as a veneer for our political activism? And I think that's really what puts people off. It's not about the race. It's just about the activism that's inherent in a lot of this stuff that people see through, and it feels disingenuous in it. And it sucks that like someone as talented and great as Halle Berry or Bailey has to be in the center of all that when she really shouldn't. Yeah,
and I want to say I have been a fan of Halle Bailey for a very long time. She actually used to have a YouTube channel, or maybe she still does, with her twin sister Chloe, and I followed them back when I was a wee youngin', like watching singers on YouTube, and they just sort of went from being these girls on YouTube who publish covers to now, being the Little Mermaid, and Chloe has her very own music career, and they make music together. So kudos to them. And it sucks that because you've been placed in the hot seat of controversy, that the talent that you display in this role, and no matter how well you do it, it's just going to be completely clouded with everything that's happened prior to this. And you would hope that people could get their big break in a way that's not as controversial. We could have had a Disney create another black princess and then put that out. The reason I won't be watching The Little Mermaid is just because I think every single live action creation of a Disney film is just ruining it in more ways than casting. It's just like I love The Little Mermaid from my childhood. Do not ruin it. I've seen what you've done with like The Lion King and Mulan and all these other movies that you're making into live action. But the racist accusations that are coming out of this are just unbelievable. Like, you guys know, when you read a novel and you have the characters pictured in your brain and they've described them throughout the movie, and you're watching this and you're taking it all in, you're imagining something, and then the movie gets made from the book, and the characters look nothing like what was described, or the setting looks nothing like what was described, and you're like, yo, dude, I had this whole thing in my imagination. I got this live action version of it and you ruined it. I'm pretty sure that's a very similar to what people are feeling on this. Yeah, it's just a really shallow way. It feels like you're using the access that you have to this intellectual property, or to this story, to the ability to make this, to make a very like shallow political statement. And really, to your point, you're kind of parading the people that you do these diverse acting out there. You're like using their skin color for your political purposes, and it's not a win for anybody. No. And again, in a vacuum, like if it's the best person for the role, or you're trying to do an artistic spin like a Hamilton where you're telling a historic story in a unique hip-hoppy way, like that's something different. And it's about at that point, it's still about the artistic achievement. It's still about making something original and unique and creative. But when it's just like it just doesn't feel right. And I think that's a frustrating thing. By the way, some people are saying that they are not twins, but they're, I don't know, maybe just sisters. Yeah. Okay, yeah, maybe they're a couple years apart. I don't know why I thought they were twins. But yeah, I think that's exactly what you're talking about is exactly right. I mean, it just feels like a massive virtue signal. And I hope that one day we get to a point where it's just like natural. You're not like overwhelming us with it. I think we read a stat the other day that said like 40% of people in movies and TV right now are African American or black. And it's like, okay, y'all make up 13% of the population. Chill. I get it. Like, when commercials come out these days and you're like, okay, we're going to make a commercial for Home Depot. We got to make sure that even though most of our demographic is, white middle-aged men who are working on their houses and their white picket fence and all that, I want a gay couple. They also must be interracial. They also want them to have a disabled child running around in the background doing something there. And when they throw the old family barbecue, I want somebody from every single race. How did all these races make it into one family? I don't know. But it's all about representation here at Home Depot. It's literally what it's like.
Yeah, the one of the producers of Rings of Power came out and said we're doing all this diversity casting and making sure that every race has, like every race in Lord of the Rings, so black elves, black hobbits, putting that in there because we want a Middle Earth to look like our world. We want Tolkien's world to look like our world. And it's like, if that's true, then statistically, like 6 out of 10 of them should be Asian, like far like East Asian or South Asian, and the black people, like you said, we're seeing like 40% representation in our TV and commercials right now, when it's just, that's not out of sync with global or that's not in sync with global or US population statistics. So is it about making the world look like the real world, or is it about you socially engineering your themes into it? And by the way, the victims in this is like the Hispanic community in the US is like what, 20-something% of the population. They're criminally underrepresented. If
they're not real minorities, Taylor.
Yeah, apparently not. But that just shows just the absurdity of trying to of thinking in this way and making sure we put it in our movies and get out our T's and cross our I's. Like, let's just not care. You're the ones who care, and then you accuse me of caring when you're jamming the stuff down our throats. Like, no, you care. You're forcing this social engineered world onto us, and it's at the expense of what you could be doing and focusing on is just making good art. And not that they're mutually exclusive, but I think you can the diversity will come, and would reflect the real world if we didn't care. Right.
And I, this does not offend me at all. I don't want to sound like I'm one of the people who's offended by there being a black Ariel. I'm not offended by this at all, but there is commentary to be had about it. And I can speak on this from the opposite perspective too. I grew up doing musical theater, and that was something that I absolutely loved doing. And we would go through and do all the famous musicals, in the typical American canon, right? And Disney musicals were a part of that too. Beauty and the Beast was a part of that. And I would go in, and as a young biracial girl, you already know, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to play Belle. Even though I'm vocally suited for it, even though I feel like I can act the part, even though I think it would be wonderful to be Belle, I know going into this, I'm not going to get Belle because I don't look like Belle. And as a child, that can be a really tough thing to deal with. And I think now in these industries, we are breaking out of that, and we're just allowing for leeway and allowing for diversity in those things, which is why it doesn't make me particularly angry. It's the fact that it is not seemingly a two-way street. There's never going to be a point in today's day and age where you're like, oh, we have this black character, let's open it up to all races and let whoever wants to play it. Or we have this Asian character, let's open it up to any races and they can all do their own interpretation on this. It's always going to be in one direction, and it's never going to happen in the opposite sense. And I feel for little kids right now who are looking at Ariel and sitting in front of the TV and going, oh my gosh, that looks just like me. I do not want to tamp down how beautiful it is to feel something like that, to go, oh, I could be a Disney princess too. But there are so many ways to create that feeling for kids. Creating new movies is a way to do that for kids as well. And like I said, personal experience with going into certain plays and musicals and going, well, damn, I know I'm not going to be the lead in this one because I know what the lead looks like. The lead is a white girl, and there's a bunch of white girls around me, and one of them is going to get it. And as a child who is not ready to like process those things and just looks at what's happening in front of them and goes, I'm not getting that, that can be sad. So I understand that there's space and probably even a need. I might go as far as to say a need to create things where people can feel like, oh, I can do that. But you can do that with new creations as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point, and I'm glad you gave voice to that. And it does speak to it's like where are these stories? And I would be thrilled to see more of them coming to bear that do feature more quote unquote diverse people. But again, I wish we didn't care. I wish it wasn't this massive priority thing. But I do, and I think a lot of times people use like the fact that there were racial undertones or crimes or mistreatment that happened in the past as a justification to do something that's an overcorrection that amounts to social engineering today. And I think that is what creates that like dissonance where you're just like, come on. But I do agree that it would be a great thing to see more quote unquote representation, more original stories being told that have people that can be related to and from all kinds of backgrounds. Right.
Like, on this show, none of us give a flying F about race. We do not care about it. I don't care to see more representation of people who look like me, but that's because I've learned that does not matter. I was on Megyn Kelly this morning, which you guys can check out the full episode on her channel, but Megan asked me about The Little Mermaid, and I was like, you know what? I don't really have a strong opinion on this, but I will say, you know, if representation is the barrier between your child realizing that they can do something, that's your fault as a parent. It is not the fault of the person that is not creating the representation. You know, as a child, if you are not seeing people who look like you do things, that's okay. And it shouldn't stop parents from saying you can do that. And I will give great kudos to my mom. My mom would never as a child tell me that I could not do something. That was not something that was on the table in our household. Even though we had spoken about racism and systemic oppression and all these barriers, there was never an idea that I gave my mother that she said you cannot do. So just because you look up at, you know, the jobs that you want or the things that you are striving for and you don't see people who look like you doing them, as a parent, you need to teach children that it doesn't matter that you don't see people. Be the first person who looks like you to go and do that. And the way that you look shouldn't matter anyways. So go for it. Your skill is the only thing that matters. And if representation is what's the make or break for that, that's a failure on the parent side.
It's very true. And you talk about, I think you talked about it with Megan Kelly today, but who you are is more about your morals, your strength inwardly, your individuality. That's what makes you who you are, your character,
Yes.
your originality, your talent, your abilities, how you apply those, your effort. And like, you know, people talk about, again, using the Lord of the Rings example, it's like, oh, we made this for black people by casting a bunch of black people. And it's like, no, it already belonged to the whole world because it enshrined ideas about heroism and about bravery, about friendship, about courage, and those are already accessible to everybody. And so that people can draw from that and embody that and live up to those, and making an adaptation of that is about whether you can capture those ideals and communicate them effectively so that people can live into them, as opposed to just using the name and then putting the peoples with different skin colors on it, but not having the ideas and values that gave the power to the original source material in the first place, that made it worthwhile, made it impactful, encourage people to be brave, encourage people to take on their duty and set aside the ranger and become who you're born to be. Those type of things that are inspiring, that already belongs to everybody, and that's there for everybody to take. And that's not skin deep. It goes down to the core of who you are and who you choose to be as an individual, and that's not a racial thing. And I think that's something that's getting lost in all of this, and that is a tragedy, and I can't wait till we get back there. And then who cares if it comes from new stories and if they can capture those values that are worth passing on to our children? Amazing. I don't care what the skin color is, but it's about the values and ideas themselves.
Yes, it's about the character. Like if I watch a character who's white or who's Asian, let's say, that resonates deeply with me just because of who they are as a person, that it doesn't matter that they're Asian. Like it doesn't matter what race they are. It's still going to resonate. But there is something to be said. Like let's talk about it just from a purely like objective, reasonable standpoint as far as marketing and the work within these corporations goes. It doesn't make sense to create content in movies that aren't a reflection of the society that you live in. It doesn't make sense because you will make no profit. People don't want to buy it. So if you have a certain makeup of your society, your movies and things should reflect that. You know, there's a reason the Black Entertainment Television channel exists. BET exists for a reason, and it's because they filled a hole that was not being filled by general entertainment. And they said, let's create a channel, and it resonated with Black people, and now resonates with people all over, you know, our country. So if you don't market to these people, they'll find things that market to them. So it's just within your own economic interests to create things that are a reflection of your society. And if the society wants representation, I guess that's something that you have to market to. But like Taylor said, it's more about your character. By the way, Disney is coming out with a new movie in, it looks like 2023, with an Afro-Latina Disney princess, and I believe her name is going to be Asha. So that seems to be happening, and I guess we'll check in back on that and see if there's any controversy surrounding that, although I doubt it.
Here's to hoping that the writing and the story that they tell are good story and good values and things that are good ideas that are worth emulating and incorporating into your life, because that is ultimately what's going to be most important about something like that.
Right. And I think that sums up my thoughts on Ariel. Yeah. I'm not mad about it. I'm not cheering about it. I am just sort of neutral. And I think there's so many different conversations you could have about it. And it's funny that it's just about a Disney movie, but it can open up so many other conversations that apparently need to be had.
Yeah, I'm I think we're on the same page there.
I think we're on the same page. So, with that being said, let's move on to the Emmys, which I'm sure probably none of you watched. I did not watch a single bit of the Emmys. Did you, Taylor?
You know, I said before the show, if an awards show falls in the forest, is anyone there to hear it? Does it make a noise? I don't know.
Is anyone there to watch it fall? And I think not. I think you said you sent me a tweet earlier that said it had some of the lowest ratings in history, I think.
Yeah, I think
Let's
last year it was like 7.5 million. This year it was like 5 million. So it was like pretty significant drop, like 20% year over year. And it's still a lot of people, but yeah, it's struggling.
Wow. The Emmys hits an all-time low. What does this tweet say? Hold on, let me read it.
I don't know, sorry.
This tweet says something outlandish. I'm going to read it really quick. This year's Emmy ratings hit an all-time low. All those Negroes who are so grateful to get an Emmy, who act like it means everything. You look real stupid. Just goes to show the white media can give you a platform, but they can't give you legitimacy. Somebody's salty.
Yeah.
Professor Black Truth, whatever that means. Okay.
Yeah, you're done.
It's very salty. Anyways, okay. So I want to talk about a couple of moments from the Emmys. One that I feel like is not getting the amount of criticism that it deserves, and another that is getting far too much. So let's get into that. Here's Issa Rae. I forget what the show that she created is called. Let me go ahead and give that a Google because it's a very popular show. She happens to be a comedian. Let's take a look here. Insecure. So she's the creator of and writer of Insecure, has sort of skyrocketed to fame through the creation of that show and sort of her comedic writing, and is a very talented Black woman. I don't identify her as a Black woman. She seems to identify as such. Here is what she said when asked who she wants to win at the Emmys, and coincidentally by Laverne Cox. So let's watch.
Now, fabulously and iconically 5 years ago here at the Emmys, you told us that you were rooting for everybody Black. Tonight, Issa Rae, who are you rooting for?
Everybody Black, nothing has changed. It will never change.
Now,
Ooh, racism, super cute. I love when celebrities dress up in their beautiful, probably thousands and thousands of dollar gowns, and they talk to each other on live television about how racist they are, and they expose that about themselves. Imagine anybody else getting up on that carpet, talking to Laverne Cox and saying, I'm rooting for everybody white. I'm rooting for everybody Asian. That's probably okay to say. I'm rooting for everybody who's Hispanic. Probably okay to say. Definitely could never say everybody white. You would be blackballed from the industry, censored off of every single social media platform, had your life ruined, never see another project in the industry again. But so long as you're saying it for Black people, you can be as racist as you want. In fact, you can be racist on live television. And I feel like the fact that anybody is able to say this is just a complete debunking of just the oppression that people seem to carry around with them. These are two individuals, Laverne Cox and Issa Rae, who would go on television and just right in front of your face tell you that Black people are oppressed in America, whilst standing on a red carpet in their thousands of dollar gowns with a microphone on national television, telling everybody that they're rooting for everybody Black at the Emmys. Could you get more irony than that?
No, it's tough. And yeah, again, it's the double standard. It only works in one direction. That's the frustrating part. Like in a vacuum, again, I get it. Like, you know, I root for I follow beach volleyball. My favorite team is the one from Louisiana that went to LSU. I root for them because I have a shared, you know, part of my history and identities with them. I root for USA in the World Cup. There's nothing wrong with like rooting for people who you have commonalities with, I guess, in a vacuum. But when the same standard can't apply and someone else can't go out there and say, you know, well, I'm rooting for the white people to win, it is kind of just, and then it goes back to the silliness of emphasizing race and making that such an integral part of your identity that it's about skin color. It's just silly.
Right. You don't make up for past discrimination with present discrimination. I just cannot stress that enough. And the fact that this is okay. You know, I was on, like I said, Megyn Kelly this morning, and we were talking about this and like the back and forth that's happening between different races in America right now. And if we continue on the track that we're at with this rhetoric, with what's happening with policies like affirmative action, with how corporations are treating white people in particular, the critical race theory trainings that are happening in our public schools, if we continue down this route of racial tension and division, in 50 years from now, you're going to have a civil rights movement led by white people who are taking charge and saying, this is ridiculous. I'm being discriminated against in school. I'm being discriminated against at my job. I'm being discriminated against on national television. I'm being discriminated against legally. I'm being discriminated against at the bank when being given loans. How do you think this adds up? How do you think it stacks up? And why, when you switch white for black, does it sound like we're talking about Jim Crow America? Anybody got an answer for that? Because we can keep saying, look at history and look at black people being oppressed in history. History is not an explanation or a justification for what is happening right now. This is why we're going to have lawsuits, and we are having lawsuits right now in the Supreme Court against Harvard and its discrimination against Asian and white students, is because it is not okay. It is a violation of the Civil Rights Act. And the fact that people aren't comfortable saying these things, or they think that history justifies them, is beyond me. And I will always say, do the thought exercise of switching out the word black for white, or the word white for black, and then see if it's racist. And it almost always is. Yeah, almost always.
This is what's so wrong about the whole anti-racism movement, that you can solve past discrimination with present discrimination. Either racism is wrong or it's not. And we can either be a society that's founded on principles, that you can build a functioning world and a functioning society, functioning life, family, culture on principles of, hey, equality, of you're valuable because you're endowed with rights. You're valuable because you're created with uniqueness in God's image, and you have infinite value and worth, and I need to respect that. I need to respect your liberty. You should respect mine. And you can build a society when everyone's playing by those same rules. But whenever it's like, well, your people cheated against my people years ago, and so that gives me the right to do the same thing to you now ad infinitum, and no amount of changing society or getting back. The goal is not to get back to a place where everyone's be treated equally under the law and having the same principles that are governing us. The goal is to subvert the system and claim that this imaginary thing of white supremacy up in the sky is holding everyone back, and we have to the rules don't matter, and we can violate everything just to bring that down. And then we're not, the gravity's not taking us back to a place of equality, to where the rules are what's most important and that we agree upon them. It's taking us to just flipping the script, and like you said, and you're going to end up to a place where the white people are going to need to have a civil rights movement, and the Asian people, and it's insane. And we're seeing it now, like in Harvard, and the discrimination's happening in higher education, where Asian people have to score higher on standardized tests, but not to mention the underrepresentation, like we just mentioned, of Hispanics in Hollywood. It's not really about the principles, and if it were, the terms would be a lot different of the engagement we're in.
Yeah, and let's address the argument of we're punishing white people now because of what their ancestors did. This is something called kin punishment. Kin punishment is when you say your ancestors and the people who came before you committed a crime or a transgression of some sort, and you are now going to be punished for it in the present day. Do you want to know 3 countries that have engaged in this? The Soviet Union, North Korea, and China. Are these countries that we want to be compared to? Do we want to take on the philosophies of the Soviet Union, North Korea, and China and start implementing them in the United States? Well, we already are. We're punishing white people now because of the sins of their ancestors. Some of the white people now are not even related to those ancestors, but who cares about that? Because we only look at their skin color, and with our little pea brains say you're white, so you must have ancestors connected to the transgressions of the past. And these are not regimes we want to be in line with. These are not values we want to be carrying out as a country. And the fact that we are so invested in it now, that a celebrity can come up and say, I'm just rooting for all the black people. Doesn't matter if they're a good black person, or if they have values, or if they're really contributing anything to society. I just care that they're black, and that's who I'm rooting for, is a small example of a much larger problem. Now, there's other news coming out of the Emmys, and Jimmy Kimmel is coming under attack. You can look at this picture right here, pulled it up for you on Twitter. Here's Jimmy Kimmel lying on the stage beside Quinta Bronson, who had just won an Emmy that night. And Jimmy apparently had been doing a bit throughout the Emmys that he was drunk and falling over and all that stuff. And during Quinta Bronson's acceptance speech of her Emmy, he laid on the ground, I believe, the whole time. So here are pictures from that night. And of course, people immediately took to the internet and accused Jimmy Kimmel of being a racist for lying down during her acceptance speech. And they said that this is an extension of white supremacy, and that's how he felt he could do it. He wanted to overshadow a black woman. Now, let's get into this and break it down. First, would anybody in their right mind ever lay down next to somebody while they're accepting an award? No. Probably not the best thing to do in an individual's shining moment that they've dedicated their entire career to. Maybe not best to do a comedy bit and lay next to them during an acceptance speech. Is it an extension of white supremacy? No. My goodness. Like, who sees this and immediately thinks that? I do not know. Especially when you acknowledge the fact that Jimmy Kimmel's a comedian. Not a really good comedian, but a comedian. And at best, you can say that this is a rude thing to do. He should have thought twice about doing it. But it's not an extension of white supremacy. And it's so funny because Jimmy Kimmel has actually been pretty instrumental in launching Quinta Bronson's career. I believe he was the first late night show that she ever appeared on and has repeatedly commended her for her comedic skills and her writing skills in her show Abbott Elementary. So to then look at this picture, and because you are looking at the world through a racist worldview, you immediately attribute this to white supremacy and racism. That's your problem. It's not his problem. It's poor taste, but it's not racism.
Yeah, I think the exact same logic applies to the we've been doing some talking about full cultural appropriation in food, and we reacted recently to a TikTok of a girl who got canceled because she made a recipe of some corn dish that was from Mexico that she didn't give credit to and called it Mexican street corn when it has some other fancy name or something like that. And it's a relatively innocuous thing, but when you read into that racism because you have a racist worldview, you connect that to this white supremacist system, and all of a sudden you're a vessel of white supremacy because you innocently made a TikTok recipe about food. And I think the same logic applies here to what Jimmy Kimmel's doing here. He's just being a comedian.
Right.
And yeah, is it in poor taste? Like, same reason. Should the person maybe have mentioned that this recipe's from Mexico? Sure. Should Jimmy Kimmel have said, not stolen her moment or been more aware of that? Probably. But does that mean that this is evidence of white supremacy at work in our society? It's like, it's the anti-racist motif of it's not whether racism occurred, it's where did it occur? And our society is training people to think like this. It's blanketed in our education. It's blanketed in media. It's blanketed in Hollywood. And it's just like not leading us to a place of progress. This is the opposite of progress. This is holding us back by reading racism and everything and reinforcing the narrative that America is this racist, white supremacist place, and it's just trying to mobilize people to be political activists who have everything racially charged, and it just makes everything insufferable and not fun and robs everything. So congratulations, guys. You made the Emmys even worse.
Yeah. You made the thing that nobody watched even worse, and now I'm going to not watch it even harder.
Yeah.
We are about to close out, but we got a couple more things to do with you guys today. I just wanted to read this tweet really quick that Taylor sent over and I thought was interesting. In 2008, a genealogy website tracked down George Washington's closest living kin to determine who would be king of America if the USA had become a monarchy instead. They found 82-year-old Paul Emery Washington of Texas, a retired regional manager for a building supply company. Look at this cute little guy.
His Excellency Paul, Your Majesty.
His Majesty.
Regional manager Michael Scott would have been our president, guys. Our king. Our monarch.
Our king. God save the king.
Would you pay taxes without representation to this guy?
To Paul Emery Washington of Texas?
I like, you see all the Washington paraphernalia. Like, he knows he's George Washington's close. I wonder if he feels like slighted, like, oh, I was robbed. It could have been me.
What if his whole family is just like secretly planning to like overtake the American government?
A conspiracy.
Create a monarchy. No, that's kind of cool that he's got all the Washington stuff around him. What a cool guy to be related to. You'd be like, I feel like I have masculinity coursing through my veins.
Yeah. American royalty.
American royalty. Anyways, thought that was a cool little fact.
I mean, the contrast of this, though, to like the recent, or the forthcoming coronation of King
Charles.
Yes. Is kind of interesting because it's like, at the end of the day, you're just a dude.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're just a dude.
Like, imagine if Britain never had a monarchy since, in the last 250 years. Right. And then it just was like, yeah, here's George from,
right,
Birmingham or whatever. He's a shoemaker.
It's very true. We're all just dudes and dudettes at the end of the day.
We are.
And then some of us end up being presidents and queens and kings. How terrifying.
Yeah, that's the adventure that is life, and it's not an issue of race and class. We all have a shared humanity, and we can focus on that and the values and ideas that you can build a great life on and build societies on. That's what we should care about and focus on, and not all these silly things of race, class, royalty, bloodline, all.
You've got my vote.
Yeah.
He's got my vote, ladies
There's
and
my
gentlemen.
stump speech, ladies and gentlemen.
And for this last part, in talking about kings, let's talk about the kings of American television, and that's TV dads. Here in this next thought exercise, you can only save 2 of these TV dads from being replaced. Which 2 are you going to choose? Oh, man. Okay. So we got Philip Banks from Fresh Prince. We got Carl Winslow from Family Matters. We got Dan Connor from Roseanne. We got Red Norman from That 70s Show. Tim Taylor from Home Improvement. Danny Tanner from Full House. Sheriff Andy Taylor from The Andy Griffin Show. Al Bundy from Married with Children. And Fred Sanford from Sanford and Son. We got to pick 2. I loved Family Matters as a kid. Didn't I do that? I'm going to go 100% Carl Winslow. He's my first choice. Wow. Love Carl Winslow.
Okay.
And you know what? Home Improvement was also a big part of my childhood. And I think I'm going to go with Tim Taylor from Home Improvement. Those are my 2.
I mean, I think you're, like, everyone who sees these is just going to go with whoever you watched the most growing up.
Yeah.
Which for me is Home Improvement. So that's my number 1.
Okay.
Tim Taylor also. Got to go with the Taylors. Speaking of, Andy Griffith or Sheriff Andy Taylor. That's the one I know the next most.
Oh, really? I feel like Fresh Prince, Family Matters, Roseanne, Full House, and Home Improvement, and Married with Children. I watched all the time. All 6 of those I watched all the time. Al Bundy is just a slob, so we're not picking Al Bundy. Danny Tanner was kind of like a wiki pushover. So we're not going Danny Taylor.
Plus, there's some sketchy
Tanner.
stuff around him anyways. That just makes me not want to pick. But
Dan Connor was also like, no, you're not for me. Not a man's man. Although maybe he is a man's man, and that's what I'm like, nah, not for Dan Connor. And then Philip Banks, who was just too stern. A little too stern for me. There was no
he was
redeemable.
always like stressed out.
I know.
Just like
Philip,
take a chill pill, man.
Chill, Phil. So Carl Winslow, I feel like he was strong, stern, but he had just like this redeemable warmth about him. And then Tim Taylor is just like, I'm Tim Taylor. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
he's a cool guy.
Yeah, so I might give Carl Winslow my number 3. Was he the one in Die Hard, or was that someone else?
I've never seen Die Hard.
Someone in the chat set me straight if I'm wrong. But
scare Taylor straight.
I will scare you straight.
Make Taylor straight.
Again.
I'm sorry, Taylor's wife.
Just kidding.
He is straight, I promise. So those are my picks. What did you guys put in the chat? Let's see.
Philip was in politics. Someone said I'm right, so
okay.
Booyah.
So it must be true.
I'm voting for him.
Somebody on the internet said it, so it must be true. Somebody said I love Danny Tanner. Fair enough. No love for Red Foreman. He's kind of crotchety, man. Red Foreman was a pretty crotchety,
I never watched that
old guy.
Show, so I wouldn't know.
I will
say Danny Tanner, the character he played, the like dad who always like sits the kid down at the end of the episode and gives the moral lesson. I mean, that's wholesome. That's good stuff. I could get behind that, but he had some kind of sketchy stuff outside of his role. Yeah, and he was a little
weak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anyways, guys, those are my picks. Drop your picks in the comments down below. I'm seeing a lot of Tim Taylor. I'm seeing a lot of Andy Griffith. So let us know which two TV dads are you going to save if It came down to it. and
Or
you
who
had
was
to.
left out of this list? Do you think anyone was left out?
Ooh.
Can you think of any TV dads?
Oh my gosh, off the top of my head is really difficult.
know,
George
but-
Lopez.
Ooh.
That's a good one.
Ray Romano.
Ray Romano. Was he a dad?
I thought they had kids. Did they?
Oh,
No,
I
maybe
don't
not. Were
know.
they empty nesters?
I have no idea.
I will say I recently watched through the OC with my wife, and
Mm-hmm.
they had the dad in that show was like super strong male figure, wise. Everyone else had in their character arcs had like major moral failings
Mm-hmm.
or something, and he said he stayed strong and was like a voice
What
of
show?
reason and wisdom. The OC,
The OC.
yeah, which was like the show for high schoolers in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, our girl Samita Armstrong's on that show.
Yeah,
Hey,
we had
girl.
her at PragerU, Stories of Us. So check
Yeah,
that
yeah.
out. But anyway, so that was a good one.
So that was a good one.
All the
Some of you
Simpson
guys
people
said
are
Bill
saying-
Cosby. I think he's left out for a reason on
Yeesh.
that one.
Yeah, that's tough.
We need to-
Sandy Cohen, they're telling me. Yeah, that's his name on the show. Damon Wayans.
Yeah, I don't. You guys are Homer Simpson, of course. Yeah, that's one.
Someone says, watching this as a Democrat, and I completely agree.
Ah,
I don't know if that's about the dad
Hello.
takes or if they're in the past a little bit, but
oh yeah. Well,
Thank you.
hello and welcome, and I appreciate you watching. We always love to reach across the aisle and have people from all different backgrounds watching the show, and that is the goal here. So thank you so much.
absolutely.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Anyways, guys, I think that is our show for today. Again, comment down below. What are your thoughts on Ariel being a black actress? Like we said, we're not mad. We're not super excited. And we certainly will not be watching just because Disney seems to ruin every classic Disney film with their live-action recreations, tragically. So don't want my eyes to be burned or my memories of the classic Disney movies to be soiled.
It might be a good poll for us to do is do you trust Disney? Like,
Yeah?
do you still trust them with shows for your kids, with
Great
to
question.
do justice to great stories? I don't know.
Yeah, we will do that poll on our community page, which go and check out for that. We always do polls with you guys, and you guys love them, apparently. Lots of comments and lots of responses, so we like to do those in tandem with the subject matters we're talking about on the show. Also, guys, if you want to sign up to get an exclusive once-a-month video from me that is not going to be on YouTube or Instagram or anything like that, sign up for my email list. If you sign up for that email list, you'll also get updates on Unapologetic in case we get censored on any platform, which is very important. You'll also be the first to know when I come out with new merch, which is hopefully going to be soon. We're doing the work in the background, trying to figure out who to go with and where to create and how to do it, and it's not going to be lame. I want cool, dope, youthful, streetwear style. It's not just going to say like unapologetic with Amala or like have my face on your shirt or something like that. We're not doing that. We're making cool stuff that you would actually wear and that people would be like, girl, where'd you get that? Or boy, where'd you get that? So you'll know first when that comes out on the email list. We're also going to work on creating a personal Discord for Unapologetic so you guys can talk to each other. I'll let you know what guests we have coming up, or if you'd like to suggest guests or certain topics that you want us to talk about, you'll be able to do that through there as well. So lots of perks for signing up on the email list. Link is in the description down below, and we'd love to hear from you there. Please like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time we go live. That is 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And we also post other videos on Tuesday and Thursday for you to see, plus our shorts, so you get a notification when those pop up as well. And of course, comment down below. What are your thoughts on The Little Mermaid? Who are the 2 TV dads that you're going to save? And that is it. We are going to see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.